Okay, so we're going to look at the factors affecting the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so obviously we need light energy for this to happen, this reaction. So we have carbon dioxide and water makes glucose and oxygen. So what could affect the rate of photosynthesis? Well, obviously the amount of light. No light, you're not going to get any photosynthesis. So light intensity will affect it. Right. And we need carbon dioxide for this reaction to proceed. So carbon dioxide concentration will also affect the rate. So if you have higher concentrations of carbon dioxide, you might expect to get a higher rate. And like any chemical reaction, don't forget it is a chemical reaction, temperature will affect the rate. Okay, so we'll have a think about all of those in turn. Right. So first of all, let's see what happens with light intensity then. Okay. Right, so, if you put light intensity on this axis here, right, you get a graph which looks something like that. Okay, so if for this first portion of the graph up to about this time here, up to about that intensity, sorry, if you increase, you give it more light, the rate of photosynthesis goes faster. But after that point, in this region of the graph here, we would say that increasing light intensity has no effect, and the just sort of jargon there, you'd say that light is not a limiting factor. The rate of photosynthesis is not limited by the amount of light available. It's something else which is stopping it from going even faster, whereas here in this part of the graph, light is limiting. So for the where light's not limiting, if you want to make it go faster, there's no point increasing the light intensity anymore. That's not going to do anything. You might be able to make it go faster by having an increased carbon dioxide concentration or a higher temperature or something, but light's not going to do it. I suppose at this point here, well, it's the chlorophyll molecules that are absorbing light, and presumably they're all working flat out. So giving more light is not, they can't work, they can't go any faster. Right, let's think now about carbon dioxide concentration. So, right, we've got our axes here. Right, so as you increase the carbon dioxide concentration, what happens to the rate of reaction, to the rate of photosynthesis? So here we've got CO2 concentration. Right, you get a similar picture with it as happens with light. What happens is, you increase the CO2, it makes it go faster up to a certain point, and then it has no effect. So we'd say in this part of the graph here, we'd say that CO2 is limiting. Add more CO2, higher concentration, make the reaction go faster. And what is significant here is, if you look at if we mark some numbers on this scale, let's have here. This is the concentration of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. Approximately, it's about 0.03%. Okay, CO2. You can see at that point, CO2 still is limiting. So if you increase the concentration of CO2 above the level found in the atmosphere, you can make the rate of photosynthesis go faster. And this is sometimes exploited by people growing things in greenhouses. What they can do is, obviously you can't increase the concentration of CO2 outside, but if it's inside, you can do. They increase the CO2 concentration, I think up to about double what you'd normally find, 0.6%, and that makes the rate of photosynthesis faster. so the plants grow faster. Right, and quite often they increase the amount of CO2 by they burn fossil fuel in the greenhouse. So they have like a paraffin heater or something like that, and that of course will make it warmer as well. And so it increases the rate of photosynthesis in two ways, by increasing the temperature and increasing the CO2 levels. Okay, now let's look at the effect of temperature. Okay, now this is similar to any enzyme catalyzed reaction. What happens here? So, right now, for the temperature here, and you get a graph which will look something like this. Okay, so up to this temperature here, and that temperature is about 40 degrees C. Okay, so up to that, in this part of the graph, it behaves like any chemical reaction. In other words, when you increase the temperature, you increase the rate. That's true of any chemical reaction. Most normal chemical reactions would just carry on increasing like that. Okay, but that obviously doesn't happen with photosynthesis, and you probably know why. It's because it is an enzyme. There's many reactions, but they are all of those individual reactions. They are enzyme catalyzed. Okay, so they go such a slow rate without an enzyme. Effectively, they don't really happen much at all. They're enzyme catalysts. So at 40 degrees C, what's going to happen there? And don't say you kill the enzymes because they're not alive, but you will denature. You start to denature the enzymes. And once you get much above that temperature, the enzymes are all denatured and the rate falls to approximately 0 because the reactions just don't happen without enzymes. Okay, so that's just a quick summary of all the three things you've got to worry about that will affect the rate of photosynthesis. The amount of CO2, the light intensity, and temperature. You might also want to think about the amount of chlorophyll. Okay, now you can't really do an experiment where you change the amount of chlorophyll unless you just add more plant, but you can do experiments with leaves, which are so-called variegated leaves. So you may have noticed some leaves, they have an area, so this bit is all green, and they have this bit here which is there's no chlorophyll, and you can show that no photosynthesis occurs in that part of the leaf by testing it for starch. So in photosynthesis, glucose is converted to starch, and you can test for the presence of starch by adding iodine to the leaf, and you can show in that part of the leaf there's no starch being made because there's no photosynthesis.